Like, honestly, I got burned out after 20 years.
How it was that transition between kind of anarchist then to, okay, here we need some rules.
I mean, there's always a level of craziness, and that's fun, and that's challenging, and that's great. But then there is that level where it's like, that was so unnecessary. Because then when the shit happens, and shit happens, like festival stuff, you end up with the weirdest challenges in the weirdest moment. Like, we don't have any boss, we are all equal, super low hierarchy. But then in the end, who owns the company? Who takes care of the money? True, I'm shouting all the time. In my opinion, I was like, yeah, because they're all idiots and do it all wrong. I'm right, But then like, oh, do I want to be that person?
Welcome everyone. My name is Chris Burstein. Some people know me as Los Cabra, and this is the first episode on breaking Backstage. Why are we doing this? Honestly, it's been some time. It's been more than 20 years that I've been working on the music industry, and I've been seeing different things that happens to me, to people that I have around. And there's a point that I thought that maybe there's something that we can do. Maybe there's something that it can be fixed, it can be changed, it can be seen, because the problems are happening over and over again. And I thought about something with my partner that I'm going to introduce in a bit. Maybe we can do something about this. Maybe we can make things a bit easier. Maybe we can make people to treat a bit better to each other. And we came with an idea, the idea of the Friction Department, that it's a way to control, prevent conflict and chaos on parties, festivals, and creative environments. And that's when we came to this idea of a podcast, maybe just to put into real words all that theory. That's why, in this precise moment, I would like to introduce Mr. Dave Dinger. He's been in the industry for more than 25 years. He knows what he's been doing. He's one of the pioneers on Garbicz, Fusion, Bar 25. He's been there when things were not even there. So, Dave, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, and thank you for being part of this project.
Yeah, exciting.
Let's start from the beginning. Why do you think that this is interesting? Why do you think that there's something to do?
Well, I guess maybe it makes most sense if I start from a personal angle. Like, honestly, I got burned out after 20 years. I was burned out because I lost too much energy in different stuff. So, like, crazy organization. I mean, there's always a level of craziness, and that's fun, and that's challenging, and that's great. But then there is that level where it's like, fuck, that was so unnecessary. And in my experience, what I see is like, one is like organization, and the other one is the how-to. How do we deal with each other, And I guess, like, looking at my own situation, I feel that there were some things that I was not really capable of. And one of it was like asking for help, being honest, and maybe the second one, being honest with the things I can't do. So me, for example, I'm pretty good at conceptualizing things, but then following up and pushing the concept through is just like not my thing. And that created a lot of trouble in my personal history, a lot of unnecessary chaos. I think, honestly, I put people in such weird places, and they were following me because they liked me, but I was like fully not capable of organizing projects in that scale. But I did, and I let people run into crazy situations. And the same happened to me as well. So I think my intention is like, let's find out how we can avoid the unnecessary loss of energy and the unnecessary friction also, like between us as human beings, because honestly, I feel like we want to grow in this. We need more benefit than just the money. If nobody does that for the money in the club and festival industry. So there must be an additional gain. And what I feel it is for me, it's personal growth.
But all this is coming from one place. Just tell me, how did you start? Because on my perception, all the festivals and the nightclubs, not all of course, but many of them, they start from a bunch of friends. Then they said, let's do a party, let's do something. And suddenly that little party started growing, and then it was more people involved, and there was more responsibility, and then money started flowing, and then from a little party of friends that turned into festivals for 10,000 people.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested to know, how did you got into this? Because maybe it's not that you plan that in 25 years I'm gonna build massive stages.
No. And I guess it just happened. I guess I was just lucky to be in the right place at the right time with another bunch of people that were looking for something better. It's like I just didn't have a feeling that I want to have a normal job, live a normal life. I had that urge of like, hey, where's my place in this world? And then there were a couple of other people who felt the same. And we did things mainly for ourselves. And then came the success, which actually made things a bit more complicated. Like I've seen a lot of projects collapsing under the success.
For sure.
Because with the success comes responsibility. You need much better planning. You need much better organization. You need communication skills. You need all that to keep that ship rolling. And that was, I guess, like mainly the tricky point. Like if I look at Garbicz, for example, we grew that fast, that big, and then we collapsed. And I've seen this happening to quite a bunch of places and festivals and things. Is like, once you have the success, how do you manage that? Because I feel like maybe nowadays the young generation is a bit more clear about like, yeah, it has a business aspect, but when we started, nobody thought of business. It was just like, let's do the shit, and if there is money left over in the end, hey, great.
But when you said that, how things started at the beginning, and you decided that what I want for my life and what I don't want for my life, and this just showed up. Did you have any alternatives? Did you have a first idea that you thought, or your parents, and said, maybe this is the way to go, and then you shift? And how it was that moment that you make that shift? Because it's not easy just to tell your parents or to decide, I'm not going to be a lawyer, an accountant, an IT person, and I'm going to do this.
Okay, I mean, there is one main story. I was like deeply into left-wing politics, working for a radical left-wing organization full-time. And I was in this like, wow, I don't like what I see here and I want to change it. And that was okay until I ended up at Fusion Festival in '99. Honestly, having like a massive LSD trip, like a massive psychedelic experience. And I was sitting in there and I was like, oh, wow, it's all there. And I can participate. And I don't need to overcome the system and do all that crazy work. I can just... Here I feel home. This is what I want to be. This is where I want to be part of. And maybe that was for me, and I think for quite a lot of other people, like that strong sense of like, we want to belong somewhere. I want to have a purpose in life and I want to belong somewhere. And honestly, I felt like creating fun and togetherness and unity and have that place in the world where we all can just come together no matter what, uh, gave me purpose in life, because I felt like, wow, this is the right thing to do, you know? And there were another bunch of people that actually felt the same. And honestly, I guess we were just collectively a bunch of misfits. We didn't fit anywhere, you know? And then we created something. I mean, it's not that we invented it, but I think we developed it to a certain point. You know, like I said, I came to Fusion Festival and I was like, what the fuck? You know, like, what is this? We can't just come along with each other. Like, where are the fences? Where's the security? Where is the police? Nobody is ruling here. And we just come along together. So that was, for me, the fascinating moment. And then we started to develop it from there, you know, like pushing it further. And I guess we had that like crazy situation that the market exploded at that time as well. We created something and the demand was crazy. Like people, we didn't do any advertisement or anything, you know, people were just like, yeah, this is awesome, let's go there. From Bar 25 to Fusion to Garbicz in the beginning. And it was everywhere the same. People were just like, yeah, we want to be part of this.
And I see it's not a contradiction, but something that you need to adjust yourself, because you said that all of you were misfits and you're coming from a radical party. And then you go into the festival and things are growing and some boundaries, they have to be there, and some rules and certain hierarchy, even though that it was a flat hierarchy. How it was that transition between kind of anarchist in a way than to, okay, here we need some rules.
There's always a level of illusion included, I guess. Because like on the surface, it was like, we don't have any boss. We are all equal, super low hierarchy. But then in the end, who owns the company? Who takes care of the money? You know, these are PowerPoints where like, well, if this is yours and not mine, it makes a difference, because then a lot of stuff comes in. This is why I said responsibility. You know, if the company is under your name, that might change your perspective on risk taking.
Yeah, you're liable for whatever happens.
Exactly. You know, and like in my experience, that changed a lot. Like we also had moments when we changed company structures and that excluded some people. And that was also kind of the way of the end of the collective. Before, we were all living in this illusion of like, we are all equal.
Mm.
And I guess like also we had like funny way of leadership, because the central figure in there just pretended not to be the central figure. So we had this vacuum in the center in the power center. And that kind of made it possible that everybody felt like equal, you know? But like I said, it comes with a bunch of illusions. And then after a while, you know, like after working a couple of years, or maybe at least after 10 years, the illusion was breaking down. You know, it was like, okay, it's not that we are all the same. We have different places in here. Somebody owns something and somebody doesn't own something. And in the beginning, nobody cared. It was like ours, yeah. But then it was like, I get it. It's yours and not mine. And then the whole illusion of like, hey, we are all equal doesn't work anymore. And then the whole dynamics in the group didn't work anymore.
You know, my grandfather once told me, like, we're all equals, but some were more equal than others.
Exactly.
So, and how was that point? Because after many years that you have the people that you work with, the people that you live with, because this was a bubble, this was a beautiful fantasy that everything is possible. And then suddenly you see that things were not just how you thought they were. And now this level of hierarchy starts appearing, and now one is over the other, and the roles start a bit more clear. How did you feel as a part of that team, and how did the other people felt?
I think it's better if I talk about me.
Yeah, sure.
And like my growth into leadership, because then I don't have to talk about others, you know. In the beginning, my understanding was that all bosses are evil, and I don't want to be a boss. But I want to do this, and I'm clearly in the lead, but I don't want to be in the lead. You know, like similar what I just said about other people. You know, I was just like pretending not to be in charge. And that honestly gave me that weird freedom of like being in charge, being not in charge, however I liked, you know. And this is why, I mean, these are personal psychological issues that come with it, you know. But like, you know, for a while I was running the soup kitchen on festival. And I did it with all my friends together, and we are all just friends and we are helping. But I did the planning, I was handling the money. I needed to make this work while everybody else was like, woo. So fuck, I was shouting at people like crazy. I was such an asshole of a boss because I didn't take on the responsibility. You know, there was like a certain moment when I realized that I'm by trying to avoiding the evil boss, I am the worst of all evil bosses, you know, because I don't even accept that I'm the boss. You know, I could just say like, do what I say because it's better or whatever, you know. But by like, I don't tell you what to do, but then shouting at you if you don't do it right, like what a weird fuck up. And things changed when I decided, okay, I need to take on that responsibility. I need to fulfill my role as a leader and accept that I'm a leader. And then I could go into softness and like, okay, if I want that person to do that, what's the most efficient and nicest way to get this done? With my whole heart and nicely and soft, but like with acceptance of like my leadership, my power. There was a change, you know, because like pretending there is no hierarchy, but then having hierarchy creates a massive cognitive dissonance, you know, because what you say is not what you do. And I think no group can function under these conditions very long. It's not very sustainable.
And how long did it took you to realize that one way was not the right way, and then you shift into this new space? Was there any trigger that you said, this is not okay, I have to change something?
Or maybe that came with like a massive burnout situation as well. I didn't have the words back in the days, but now when you ask me, I think it was that. You know, there was like a certain moment when we changed the Bachstelzen dance floor from one location to the other. And I was like, yeah, but I don't want to give up my old food stall in the old location. And yes, I want to have the new food stall in the new location. So I was like, okay, I do 2 food stalls.
Yeah.
And there was that year when I went just crazy because also nothing worked. There was just too much for the team and for everything, and honestly, too much for me as well. And there were these like, I don't know where they came from. Back in the days, we were just like harvesting so much shit from theaters and stuff. There were these little cards and they said like, boss is smiling, boss is happy. Like we had like hundreds of them with like stating the emotional status of the boss. And my friend came over and handed me the boss's exploding card. And I guess that was a moment when I started to reflect. And maybe that's also like interesting in terms of like what we are talking about and where we're heading, because like it's that feedback culture that helped me to do a reflection and a realization of like, all right, true. I'm shouting all the time. In my opinion, I was like, yeah, because they're all idiots and do it all wrong. I'm right, you know? But then like, oh, fuck, do I want to be that person? Thanks for that reflection, I would say nowadays. Because like, no, I don't want to be that person, and it doesn't work. You know,
When you say that it doesn't work, that means that probably your actions had consequences. What was the cost of you behaving in that way? Like people not coming back, internal stress with the crew, because sometimes when we're talking about all this, it's too in the air, and we have to realize that there's a cost. It's cost on our health, it's cost on people that we like, we're not friends anymore, workers, volunteers, they leave. How did it affect that to you before doing this transition to this new boss?
like staying with that example of the soup kitchen, it was just like a hell of a mismanagement. Say I had these like soybean sprouts, you know, and they need to be handled fresh and shit. And there was this friend of mine, and he was just there helping me. And I was like fully stressed. Yeah, you gotta take them and put them in the fridge. So he took them and like, I don't know, like 100 kilo or what of those, and put them in the freezer. Which is the death of it, you know.
Has soybean ice cream, yeah.
Yeah, plus they are
mushy.
Yeah,
Yes, no,
you can't use it anymore. So I was shouting at him, and nowadays I would say like, wow, he wasn't even there to work. He just came by to help. I didn't tell him clearly what I want from him. I didn't give him clear, like,
yeah, there was a clear
this
miscommunication.
stuff needs to go there.
Yeah,
You know, I was just like randomly saying like whatever. And that's like what I would say now, not properly taking care of people in all dimensions. You know, like nowadays I would ask like, are you confident you can do that? You know, but things like that were not in my mind at this time. But then it ends up like I don't have soybeans, I can't sell the product, the whole fucking business collapses for a moment until I drive back to Berlin and buy new stuff. And I mean, it's a lot of money, you know, and a lot of stress and getting a driver, and then the car broke down and
yeah, the perfect storm.
Yeah,
In the middle of a festival,
yeah,
everything
totally.
goes wrong. This is something that sometimes we say that it's at the moment that we can plan or have like a contingency plan for things happen. It's not that you can fix the world, but some things, they can be prevented. Of course, not with the soybeans that somebody put in a freezer. That is quite specific. But yeah, that happens.
I guess I'd like to continue because there is like after further down the line, when we got better, I had moments in Garbicz Festival, for example, when I felt that in the whole production, and then I was like deeper down in the production, everybody knows what they are doing. Everybody has their stuff under control. And then the magic happens. Because then when the shit happens, and shit happens, you know, like festival stuff, you end up with the weirdest challenges in the weirdest moment, like find an aluminium welder Saturday night, you know, a shit like that. It's hard to find in the city. But then if everything is prepared, you know, and everybody knows what to do, everybody is capable of taking a little bit of an extra load. So if you ask for help, they are like, sure, no problem. Let's do this. And for me, that's the magic of the festivals. That's why I do that, because the level of collaboration I don't find anywhere else in the world. But as long as we are all lost in our survival tunnel, like, oh, I gotta make this work, I don't know how, we are not open to interact, and we can't help each other. And then things get pretty dark, actually, I feel. But like in the moment you sort things out and you have a proper plan and everybody knows what to do,
Yeah,
then the niceness comes in.
exactly.
Abundance, you know, like everybody has like a little bit more than they actually need.
Yeah.
And then the sharing economy comes in and like you find everything you need in the weird places.
And
Yeah.
that's something that I love, and I always say about festivals and nightclubs compared to maybe other industries, is that people that go there is for passion. They love to be there. They love these environments. They love to be out of their comfort zone in some way. But then this magic happens. What you're saying, that people collaborate. It's like, okay, here I have, here you have, and they help each other. And we have. I would also like to ask you so many questions about your history, because you've been probably in both sides, when nothing worked, as you told us, and when everything worked. What is the perfect ground? The perfect ground that you said, for example, this year, for the ones that don't know, David is in charge of the construction of one of the biggest stage in Garbicz Festival. He has an amazing team, and he told me a couple of days, I feel strong this year. I feel that things are in place. What are the not the numbers, but the cues that tells you we're on the right track?
I guess that starts again with me when I feel confident that I can do what I need to do. And that starts way earlier with like being honest about the things that I'm not good at. You know, as like I said, I'm good at setting up things, but then following up, it's not my cup of tea. You know, it's like I'm the door opener. I'm good at that. I'm good at making connections, but I'm not good at keeping track and keeping things stably running. So I guess the key point this year was like being honest with that and asking in the team and checking who can take over that parts that I'm not good at. And so now when I'm like, I don't know, like the last couple of days, I worked like, I don't know, like 10 hours a day. And like I said in the beginning, it was funny because in the same amount as I was solving problems, new problems were coming in. It's classical festival stuff. Like now
they open one door and
now they build the road to Garbicz Festival. Now. Means like 2 weeks before the festival, who needs deliveries for a festival, right? So there's a whole logistic nightmare unfolding, or at least I had the paranoia. But you know, it's like I solved that issue, then I received the phone call that there might be problems with that, then I take care of that. But what I'm trying to say is like I had enough space for all the unforeseen shit. And the things that are on my menu are either manageable for me, or I know a person where I can throw it at. And that's maybe another point where I'm like, what is good leadership? Not being stressed, but not pretending not being stressed. That's something different. You know, like you could be like totally burned out and overloaded and be like, yeah, easy. I tried that for a while. It didn't work that well. No, but just like being relaxed and like finding solutions, because when I'm stressed, I'm not good in solution finding, you know. And so when I'm relaxed, that energy spreads into the team as well. So if they get nervous or whatever, I can talk with them and we co-regulate in a way, you know, like, okay, no, we find a way. Maybe even if we don't have a solution right now, let's talk again tomorrow. Let's check the options. Let's make a decision tomorrow. Things like that, where it's just like, yeah, trying not to overload. I guess that's the whole fucking point.
Talking of which, there's something that for me is the most important thing about this project. That is the way that we treat each other. Because let's be honest, on the night industry, certain things happen, and maybe we're not sleeping for a long period of time, and maybe we're in a special state of mind. And when you have this level of stress on a festival, on the preparation, maybe some comments or the way that you approach the people, you, me, everyone, it can be not the same one as a Monday morning in the office. So did you have these situations or you've seen these situations when, because people didn't treat each other so well, that escalated into a bigger issue?
I think what usually happens is like the silent treat, starting to avoid each other. That's the normal reaction, I guess. And I would maybe even start one step earlier, haven't mentioned it yet, but like in the last years, I'm working as a body therapist. So I'm doing a lot of group work also as an outcome of all this festival stuff. Like, okay, where are our personal limitations and how to get honest with that? Like seeing my limitations, being able to communicate it, and then I can ask for help and then we can form a group. Yeah. But like one game that I like to play in groups a lot is like saying yes and no. So it's like walking around and randomly forming couples. And then in the first round, you express your no, like escalating from no to like no. And then the second round, the yes. But I find this like really helpful because like, okay, this is a game, we are in a safe container, no stress, nothing to manage. But still, it is tricky for people to express their basic yes and their basic no. So if we are without the stress, not even capable of saying no to another person in a gamification, how would that be in a stressful moment? Like, would I go into the confrontation and say like, hey, the way you do it is not correct? And it's a bit like what I mentioned before, my friend giving me that card with bosses exploding. And so that was a playful way. Yeah, worked well, and the more we develop skills like that, how we can talk to each other about the unpleasant stuff in a funny way, in a loving way, in a caring way, then we start working better together, because like I feel that the usual thing is like, oh, there's a problem that might create emotional tension. Oh, let's pretend it's not there. And that doesn't work, and so I find it really helpful to have like a basic playfulness that everybody feels safe in their group to say yes and no in a game zone, because like, okay, now you have your basic navigation tools, your left and right, and you need that to deal with the shit when it's there. You better prepare before it's getting hot. Yeah.
And that is something that you can do in a controlled environment. But for example, when you're in a festival and the heat is already there, do you have any technique or something that you can apply just to decompress and making people start treating each other a bit better?
Well, I guess there is kind of like my personal skill set that I learned over the years with like, how do I regulate my nervous system? Taking a breath is a very useful fundamental thing, but you have to think of it in the right moment. So also that you have to practice, because otherwise you forget it.
Yeah.
But just like taking a breath before you react is such a massive game changer. But like what I usually like to do is pull the plug for a second. Because everybody is so heavily into like, we need to achieve that, we have trouble.
Yeah.
And then the stress comes because we have to do it like this to achieve that. And we have to do it like that. And then just like, okay, let's get out here for a second. In Garbicz, I would say, okay, we jump in the lake, have a 10-minute break and start to connect again. Because like, as long as we are in the tunnel,
when you're part of the problem, you're not part of the solution.
And that's the other point, like having a third person, I would say, helps a lot, whatever that means, like in the situation of like two people being in trouble.
Yeah.
having one in the team that is kind of like the problem solver or the daddy or mommy, the go-to place. And like people can go there either alone or together, but you need to connect, because we end up in isolation, and the way out is always connection. And how do I get into connection again? And people from outside is so helpful.
Yeah. It's something that I've been seeing on all this research. It's that one of the biggest problems is like people feel invisibilized. People feel not seen. Yeah. So when you say that there's a third person that you can go and talk, sometimes that person is not going to fix it. But if you have all that space and the person that has the issue can express it and put it out, is directly already a burden coming out of the chest.
Yeah.
Just for putting it out.
And that's so important, especially like I said in the beginning, that my feeling is that a sense of belonging, the need to belong to something, is such an important aspect of all the club and festival work. This is why people go there. This is why they put their passion in there, because like they have something like a family or a group, or they have the feeling like, wow, now I belong to something, and then in that moment of conflict, that main power source is shut down, because then you have the feeling like, oh, fuck, now I'm that angry bitch. Nobody will like me like that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm out. Yeah. Say that would be like my standard reaction. People react differently, but it all ends up in disconnection and isolation. And then like, how do we create the togetherness again? And it's like you say, if you already talk with one person in the team and he hears you or she, that changes so much already, because then we are in connection again. Then we can be part of us, even though we have these feelings that we don't want to have. We might even know it's ridiculous to freak out because that person put the screwdriver here and not there, or whatever, You might know it's wrong, but you have that feeling, and if you press it down, you disconnect. And if you bring that in connection, and is things you can easily learn how to do, is like, I know it's stupid, but a part of me is super angry with you about that little detail. And I know it's bullshit. I know it's my shit, but I need to bring it into contact, because otherwise I start boiling.
Yeah. There's a really interesting phrase from Charles Chaplin that he used to say that life, when you see close up, is a drama. And when you see from far away, it's a comedy. I think it's the same thing on situations. Then you say like, oh, why? But you said that after. But in the moment, you're boiling and you don't know what to do with that rage that you have.
Yeah.
That now you know that it was unnecessary. But in the moment, it's focus.
Yeah.
We don't have so much time. I would like to shift a bit more, because besides all this history that we have on the festivals and the clubs, you're a DJ. You're a DJ and a producer, and a really good one. And you've been going all around. And there's we're artists, and our I don't want to say our over ego, but we have a special feeling that we feel affected a bit more about criticism or on our normal situations and interactions with people. How was it for you? How was it for you then? How is it for you now? How to deal with that level of being judged at some point as an artist, and we have to deal with the eyes from the others that are coming toward us. I'm gonna give you an example from my personal experience. Also, I've been playing for like 15, almost 20 years, and at the beginning, I was not so comfortable to be in front of many people in front of me, and I started taking acting classes. And the exercise that we did on your workshop, that it was a yes and no, it was another level, and it was like yes or no, and then it was like I love you and I hate you to people. And I realized that for me, to say I hate you was so easy, but to say I love you,
Okay.
it's like the complicated boss chip that you got on the festival, and that was the drop that it says like something is here, something is happening. I had the same thing, telling strangers I love you, and that also triggers so many things like why this is happening. And I started going there, and then I realized that we are extremely sensitive people as artists. Our brains are wired in a different way. How do you deal with that ego that we all have at one level?
Yeah, interesting. Like for me, things changed a lot in the last couple of years because, like I said, I burned out like roughly 5 years ago, and then went on a journey on like a lot of somatic work, body psychotherapy, because I felt like, wow, I have all these images about myself and I'm very good at selling them. It's part of the DJ business, right? Or being a projection field or whatever. But it's like, who the fuck am I really? And this is where my body helped me. And because like your body doesn't lie, and I could tell all these stories about like, no, I'm so easy, I can handle that, I think that I'm good. But honestly, my body was in panic every time I DJ'd. I was like in massive freeze. So what I did, I was not taking acting classes, I was taking drugs.
Same but different.
Yeah, well, maybe the consequences are slightly different, yeah. But, because I was so nervous before my gigs, and especially that social situation before the gig, everybody comes, want to be friend with you, everybody wants to talk about something, while I'm on stage fever and like, So that was always the moment when I just did a hell lot of drugs. And then like it didn't do good to me also, like it didn't do good to my performance or anything. So I had this weird moment not too long ago, just some years, and I was like playing at a private party and I felt totally uncomfortable. But it was beautiful, like Byron Bay, Australia, sunrise, jungle, magic. And I felt so uncomfortable because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And then I was like, okay, what do I do? And honestly, it was that moment when I overdid all imaginable drugs by far already. So that was not an option anymore. I was just like, I can't consume anything anymore. And then I was like, oh, I can dance. I can use my body. And so that was like, it's so stupid, but it's like, it's the truth. I was like, okay, I never thought of it, of like using dancing and moving my body to regulate my nervous system instead of doing drugs all the time. And I think that's really funny because like, what's the job of a DJ? Make other people dance. And it took me like kind of 20 years to think like, oh, I can do that too. Yeah, and I think there is another aspect that was like, for me personally, very tricky, receiving love. Like, I fully understand your story of like how hard it is to say I love you. For me, like accepting to be loved was the trickiest shit. Like all these people came and were like, you're great. And it was painful for me because like my perception of myself, of like not being worthy, and what they say ended up in this like, so, I was lost every time, and really learning to accept love. Like when people stand there and say like, that was fucking awesome, and develop that skill to say, yes, it was. I can feel it too.
I let me add something to that. I had the same feeling, and I don't remember where I play, and it was really good. And people were coming to me, and said, yeah, wow, that was amazing, blah, blah. And I was saying like, yeah, so today I made a mistake and I played great, kind of as a joke. And then it was a time that I used to play with Manuel Sagon, the other part of Los Cabra. And he told me, that is not okay. That is not okay, because somebody's coming to tell you something nice. And when you say that, it's like, no, okay, so what you're saying is bullshit. And I don't believe what you're saying, that is coming from a good place, from the heart, because they don't have any reason why to come and tell you that you play well. They're not your friends. They're coming from like open heart. And then he told me something that I start doing. It's like, I try my best. Thank you. I did the best that I could. And then I felt good about myself, because it was true that I tried the best that I could. And also I was not neglecting or nagging the other person, saying like, what you're saying is stupid, and actually, and that really changed everything. And it took me many years to start accepting people telling me something nice.
So hard, isn't it? And isn't it very interesting, like, why on earth did we choose that job if we have that problem? And in a weird way, it makes total sense.
Yeah, because it's objecting our own fears and our own...
And we bring ourselves in a position that we can learn with it and grow. And I think this is, you can generalize that over the whole festival and party industry. It's like, why on earth are people choosing to do that?
Yeah.
You know, it's not a clever decision. Like, passion, okay, that's one thing.
Money-wise, no.
But it's like, why I ended up in all this like therapy stuff was like, hey, I really want to find out what makes the people tick. Why are they acting like this? You know, and then the journey starts with myself, obviously. But like that trouble of accepting to be loved, and then choosing a job of being a DJ where everybody would say like, yeah, you have that extra need of being loved. Yes, no, but exactly the opposite. You know what I mean? It comes from a very different place, more like the insecurity and like, yeah, I'm searching something that proves that I'm worthy, but when the proof comes, I'm like, nah. And like you said, then rejecting people, and then you're arrogant, right?
Yeah. And I can understand how people will see that, even that it's not our intention, how they might feel that we're arrogant or like shitty in some ways. Just to close this topic, I am in my normal life, I'm kind of like center. I don't yell, I don't scream, I don't curse. I'm kind of and then when I go to play, it's not that I start cursing, no worries, but it's, people told me one of the best compliments, like, you shine. You shine. And there's they see a part of myself that normally I don't show up. And I think that it's kind of like our playground, and it's the place that we put our hearts, our soul on the table. And it's kind of like a double-edged sword, because this is what we do and this is not who we are. But for us, that limit is a bit tricky. And at the moment that we play, that's who we are. And at least for me, it breaks all the barriers, and it just allows me to be like, out and to shine. And people say that, I see that when you play, you enjoy what you're doing. And it's true. And then I realized, you know, life sometimes goes in weird ways and it takes us to one direction or the other. But there's something that always keep on coming, that is music and entertainment. But the core thing, it's interaction. It's to be with people, to be on the same frequency, just to feel the same way. Because when you're playing and you know that perfect bubble happens, everything works. Is that how do you call it, the magic string, or that like a perfect point that everything fits with the crowd, with the music, with you. And it's kind of magical. And I know it sounds a bit like spiritual, blah blah, but it is true. It is true. It's that moment that I'm here.
And I would go even further as a last thought on that topic. There's a really great book that everybody should read, that The Artist's Way, from Julia Cameron. And she writes that arts and culture is healing work on society, is therapy for the collective. And I think that moment of magic is a healing moment as well.
For sure.
And this is on the personal level as well, because like, honestly, I have a bunch of shit in my life, but like, if I get conscious about it, that's healing work. And sometimes I need all the energy from all the people to heal something inside of me. And this makes me shine. And this is what inspires the other people, So on the one way, like, being an artist is therapy for myself, is healing work with myself. But then when I'm an artist and expressing that, we do that on a collective field as well, because I'm expressing that energy and people pick up on that. And I think that like the artists that I really like and that really inspire me are doing exactly that, like inspire other people to find their truth or heal or whatever, call it spiritual. There are so many names for more or less the same thing.
And that brings me to the last question of this podcast. If you have to tell the audience something, there's two things. Can you please tell them one thing not to do and one thing to do? On this field, on how to live a
I think
life.
Like the thing that I would recommend is, again, like, what can I say? I'm talking about myself, but like staying connected with my body is for me the main challenge, because when I'm connected with my body, then I'm connected with myself. And that's such a main challenge, because if I'm not there, if I'm spaced out somewhere, whatever there is, it becomes useless, for me and for others. So that goes back also to me on stage. If I'm spacing out because it's all so scary, I'm functioning, but I'm not shining, But if I'm like, okay, fuck, I'm totally nervous, there's all that shit going on in my body, I'm going crazy, but I can be with it. I can feel, experience all that and be present with that and function. Then the magic happens. And so I think this goes out to everybody, like, stay connected with yourself, take a breath. It's exactly. But what not to do? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know, because like this whole right and wrong thing is very complex. I don't know.
Good. We have the directive on what to do, and that's the most important part. So, 55 minutes, I think that we're ready. Dave, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for that invitation, and thanks for the beautiful conversation. Thanks for your beautiful questions.
My pleasure, and this is not going to be the last one. Dave is also my partner on this project, so you're going to see him again, maybe from a different perspective, maybe ask him more questions. And here, from the Launch Lab Studios in the heart of Berlin, thank you so much, Simon Blake, for that. We say goodbye. If you want to contact us, if you need anything, you're going to find that on the description. Thank you so much. Until next time.
Ciao, ciao.